And during one of my travel, the rickshaw stopped in between, and we understood that it was a battery problem. So that was in 2018. If you see, apparently anyone buying an electric vehicle, the first problem ये है कि कितनी दूर तक जाएगी,
Correct.
and how much time I have to spend in charging. So buy the vehicle, not the fuel, and that's where battery as a service, battery swapping, the whole concept we started. It went like viral among the drivers. So they technically Chargeup shifted these batteries from cost center to revenue center. आप देख रहे हो कि मेरी बैटरी मैं पहले कितने खर्च कर रहा, अब कितना कर रहा हूँ. अब Chargeup के साथ they are looking at मैं पहले कितना कमा रहा था, अब कितना कमा रहा हूँ. So it's a complete shift in their behavior. It's so seamless the way we do it. Within 2 days, the station is up and running. You just need to understand the app. That's it.
And how much money, say, do I need to have this station?
The least it starts with an investment of 1 lakh rupees.
1 lakh, like really 1 lakh rupees,
Yeah.
and that's the is it something कि monthly कुछ recurring pay करना है? Hello everybody, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Climapreneur Show. On today's episode, we are speaking with Mr. Varun Goenka, the founder of Chargeup. With him, we really try to explore that how has he built an inclusive growth platform for everyone, from e-rickshaw drivers to the charging stations to his team as well. And I really love the fact कि जब वो grow कर रहे हैं तो उनके साथ एक set of people grow कर रहे हैं. But how did he make that happen? So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Today's episode is presented in collaboration with Capital A. So welcome Varun on the Climapreneur Show.
Thanks, Shweta.
So Varun, ये बताओ कि what charged you up to start Chargeup?
So Shweta, Chargeup happened because some instance happened. We used to stay in Delhi and we used to take those e-rickshaws for last mile connectivity. And during one of my travel, the rickshaw stopped in between, and we understood that it was a battery problem. And that's what there is a curiosity that why is this a battery problem? And then we got to know that there are more e-rickshaws in India than the more EVs sold in China. So that was in 2018. And that actually charged up to start Chargeup.
So when you say कि battery की problem थी, like मतलब वही कि वो रुक गई क्योंकि उसमें charge नहीं था, and then उनको charge करने में ज़्यादा time लगता है जो conventional to charging system था.
Yeah.
So how did you मतलब start about it? What is the solution that you brought to that?
If you see, apparently anyone buying an electric vehicle, the first problem ये है कि कितनी दूर तक जाएगी.
Correct.
And how much time I have to spend in charging. So all these e-rickshaw guys, that was the primary problem for the driver. That मेरा range anxiety है. I can run only 70 kilometers. And the second biggest problem was capital expenditure. Every 6 to 8 months, the battery used to get depleted and they used to have to reinvest capital investment in the batteries. So that's where we saw that, okay, when you buy a ICE vehicle, you buy the vehicle, not the fuel. So why in EVs? So buy the vehicle, not the fuel. And that's where battery as a service, battery swapping, the whole concept we started.
And like when you say कि battery swapping start करा, how did you actually मतलब उस time पे तो एक model चल रहा था, and I believe कि जो e-rickshaw segment है, that is probably India's biggest climate success story according to me.
Absolutely.
Because it penetrates a zone of comfort, convenience.
Yeah.
Rider के लिए मतलब बहुत convenient है, जो drive कर रहा है उसके लिए convenient है. तो उस time पे how did you actually manage to change the drivers कि नहीं यार आप ये मत करो, battery swapping as a service लो?
Right.
Did you had like any मतलब कोई trust factor था कि why would say someone trust you?
Oh, absolutely. Initial penetration was a huge challenge, and trust is the biggest factor. It took us time to actually penetrate that market, to build that trust among the driver. But since we were it was a painkiller. It was not a vitamin C. So for the driver, it was like, okay, it's just a small cost. Let me give it a try. And then it started multiplying very fast because, it was a life-changing thing for them.
तो like मुझे थोड़ा सा explain करो कि like what does like Chargeup for a driver looks like? कि driver की charging खत्म हुई and then they come to your setup. So how does that work?
Okay. So let me first put up drivers who have an existing electric vehicle. जिनके अपनी e-rickshaw या two-wheeler है, their existing batteries come to end of life. So they need to again buy a battery for the vehicle.
Correct.
That's where they come to Chargeup. They come to a platform, subscribe it. वो हमारे साथ जुड़ते हैं जहाँ पे lithium batteries हम उनको provide करते हैं, Chargeup की batteries as a service. So now they are only paying for how much they're using. उन्होंने एक swap किया, they run for 70-80 kilometers, then they move anywhere and they find a Chargeup station where they can swap it. So interesting, what triggered their behavior, they were confined to a 10-15 kilometer radius.
Correct.
But with Chargeup, we went like 7-Eleven. Every pin code should have a Chargeup station that the driver should not even take a detour. And that's what triggered their behavior. A driver who was only in North Delhi, he started taking longer trips till South Delhi. It increased his revenue almost by 100%. It went like viral among the drivers. So they technically Chargeup shifted these batteries from cost center to revenue center.
Cost center to revenue center.
आप देख रहे हो कि मेरी बैटरी मैं पहले कितने खर्च कर रहा अब कितना कर रहा हूँ. अब Chargeup के साथ they are looking at मैं पहले कितना कमा रहा था अब कितना कमा रहा हूँ. So it's a complete shift in their behavior.
Right. So when you say कि मतलब उनका radius बढ़ गया है, so how did you actually manage to set up इतने सारे charging stations and like जो batteries हैं, are you manufacturing it or like do you have tie-ups? तो पूरा ecosystem को build कैसे करा?
Okay.
आज कितने stations आपके पास?
Okay, so Chargeup has 300 stations
300 stations across Delhi.
Across 7 cities. Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, Ghaziabad. We take it as 4 cities.
Okay, Delhi NCR basically हम कह सकते हैं.
And then we have in Jaipur, Mathura and Lucknow. Let me first give you an intro of Chargeup. See, Chargeup is definitely an EV company, but we are building India's first driver-first ecosystem. It's for the drivers, built around the drivers. And we are a platform. We are not a product company. We are not a manufacturing company. So as a platform, we have coined a new term as FinTech, finance, network, and tech, where we start with network. We build a deep distribution of the network of swap stations, charging stations for the drivers. We build that trust, collect a lot of data. We have a tech. It's like all tech-enabled network. All the vehicles, all the drivers, the batteries, we have a tech. We are IoT within that. So we get a lot of data. From that, we started optimizing solutions for them. See, today, for a driver who goes to buy an electric vehicle, his first point of contact, he goes to a dealer.
Right.
Then there's a financing guy who comes. After buying the vehicle, there's an energy guy who will provide him energy service. Then there is a guy who will provide him service, AMCs. And then if there is that's where the problem lies, that he has to go to multiple stakeholders. Then there's a guy who will provide him demand, like Zomatos of the world. And that's where the challenge is. Chargeup comes in as a single point of contact for him. From buying a vehicle, financing to the demand, we stitch the entire thing. सबसे interesting thing, हमने last year एक EV मेला किया, just like a big billion day sale. Delhi, before Diwali, 2 days, 1,000 drivers visited us. And as they entered the Mela, there were Hero Electric, various OEMs, vehicle manufacturers, जो अपनी vehicles की demo दे रहे थे. They chose a vehicle there, taking a demo. Next was the NBFC, the financing people. वहाँ पे उनकी financing file clear हुई. They registered with Chargeup. And after that, the icing on the cake, Zomato, Uber, Rapido, all counters were there. The driver could choose with whom he wants to work. Now, a very transparent platform where driver is the king and he's choosing.
This is like such an amazing example. I think such an amazing case study as well, that the way you brought the entire ecosystem together. मतलब, I always feel कि अगर climate में हमें succeed करना है, we always talk about mass adoption. So how are we going to make these solutions relevant to these people? How are these people's lives going to be empowered with these solutions? And the way आपने end to end सब कुछ दिया, I think that's like hitting on the bullseye, because उनके पास सब कुछ है इस time पे.
See, that's why, so for a driver, now it's only Chargeup.
Correct.
Okay. We start with network, any city, and we go with like geography leadership. हम मथुरा गए, वहां पे हमने 35 stations open up कर दिए. And like Mathura, now the drivers are like, sir, you are the lifeline for us. And when you go to tier 2, tier 3 city, it's the whole culture which is infectious in our company. Every team member is a Chargeupreneur. Mathura, when there was a power cut, everyone shut their shop and went away. Our team, they just went out, rented some gensets, charged the batteries, but the driver should not be hampered by this. So, that's I won't say that's more on the climate action, but that's more on a better livelihood for the drivers.
Yes.
But yes, I come from solar background. To stitch the whole thing, we are now going ahead with solarizing of our Chargeup stations as well, so that at least 40% of our batteries can be charged through solar energy.
So 40% of the batteries.
Yeah.
So, Varun, like, ये question सबका होता है. Like, the number of times I've like had any person with EV space onto the podcast.
Yeah.
One comment is common कि EV sustainable कितना है. Like, because obviously, as we mentioned, कि charging तो वहीं से like fossil based charging है. So is it really sustainable? Like, what are your thoughts on it? And when you are saying कि हम solarize कर रहे हैं, when would that be say 100%? और आपको क्या चाहिए होगा उसको 100% से on green energy, renewable कुछ भी आप कह लो उस पे अगर आपको लेके जाना है charging?
See, we don't need 100%. As we say, for this climate action, we don't need the entire world to get 100% green. We need 100% of people to get at least 10% clean, and that's what will help the environment to get green. Yeah.
It will have good results अगर ऐसा होता है मतलब ये वाला.
100%. If every person contributes that 10% of this, the cumulative action will be definitely much more better. So interesting theory if I talk about this part. If you measure an ICE vehicle versus an electric vehicle from the mining of lithiums to the end story, yes, there's a lot of pollution happening in that as well. But there's a very interesting thing which I recently learned. Where the electric vehicles save the carbon emission, it's the brake. When you put a brake on an ICE vehicle, and again it uses a lot of combustion power to accelerate. Versus an EV, if you just leave the accelerator, it will stop. So it's the brake which makes the difference on the carbon emissions between both the vehicles.
But that's an interesting theory to have. So do you feel कि हमें like how much time is needed for us to switch to renewable when we are talking about charging infrastructure for EVs? And will EVs always stay relevant? Like for example, I was in discussion with someone. So that person said कि ठीक है हम अभी EV पे काम कर रहे हैं, but we don't even know कि आज से 2 साल बाद 3 साल बाद maybe कोई नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ जाए. तो do you feel कि EV relevant रहेगा long run के लिए?
Very interestingly, prior to EV, I was into solar renewables. And I've been hearing these stories since long. मतलब 2011, almost 12 years, I've been hearing कि solar में technology change होगी, ये हो जाएगा, road plane में solar लग गया, what's going to change? Let's understand and accept, there has to be commercial viability, number one. And it's not that one solution can fit everyone. There's a lot of talk about hydrogen, green hydrogen, but that's for large four-wheelers, different target audience altogether. So EV is definitely going to stay longer. As far as going green is concerned, see, India is leading in terms of, the mix of green power with the mix of coal power. So, and that's increasing. And with now companies like even Reliance, Tata, Vedanta, they are, Adani, they're betting big into the renewables. Yes. So that the mix is going to increase and get better only. So, we can't say that the 100% EV charging is coal-based. At least today we can say 12 to 15% is still renewables.
And that's a good number to have.
Yep, absolutely.
And I feel, जैसे लोग आ रहे हैं, for example, you are talking about solarizing the 40% of it. I was in conversation with someone who said कि हमने अपनी dealerships पे 30% solar charging आ रही है हमारे vehicles में. So I feel that your point that if everyone does 10% also, we are going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So that's an interesting perspective again. So Varun, tell me this thing that अभी recently India में पहले जम्मू and कश्मीर में और अब राजस्थान में lithium reserves मिली हैं.
Right.
So what does this mean for India? I read it somewhere कि I think India की 80% of the demands can be met from the Rajasthan reserves. But then again, I think Anand Mahindra tweeted, I read that reserves are not only enough, we need refining also.
Absolutely.
So what is the process and how today are we at the refining capacity or refining infrastructure in India?
We are not there at the refining capacity today, but at least we are on the direction to create that capacity. If you see, as I name these companies like Vedanta, Reliance, all these stepping into the same thing. Lithium reserve is a big thing. First, let's celebrate the good part. Let's not first worry about the later stage. So where the question was, we have to import all the lithium cells. Now India can be an exporter of lithium. That's the most interesting part to see. So supplying to the world. So what is the impact as a consumer? The prices can be controlled. It cannot be that volatile. And control prices means more adoption of EVs.
Right.
Impact on the climate. Second, refining capacity, I think it's too early to comment on that. With India and with Modi ji's Make in India, I think that's definitely going to pick up and they'll have a solution to it.
So you feel like we are on the direction towards that. And you also feel कि India बहुत ही relevant market है EVs के लिए अभी. So for example, Tesla वापस आ गया है. Tesla went away and now it's coming back. तो कुछ तो होगा Indian market में कि वापस आ गया है. Tesla जैसी company. So what is it like?
See, So there's a lot of noise around EVs, at least in last 2 years time frame. Post second lockdown, I don't know, suddenly I saw why there's so much noise. And what we realized, companies are talking about ESG compliance. Vedanta recently announced to the employees, if you buy an electric vehicle, we are going to subsidize it from the company side. And a lot of people are stepping into the same shoes. If you look at Zomato, Amazon, they announced, then government came up with 100% electrification of the fleet. Why this sudden thing? If you look at the global market of climate tech, ESG, the carbon credits, and that's where I always say it's not only about the love towards climate, but finance always plays that inflection point for this climate tech to grow.
Please थोड़ा सा उस पे explain करो कि आप जो बोल रहे हो carbon credits, finance, climate tech, how is this all interrelated?
Okay, so let me simplify. What is carbon credits first? The carbon credit is a policy made by a pact of some countries that any entity who is generating energy through renewables or who is saving this greenhouse gases emissions, they should be incentivized. So that's one part of the story. The second part, people who are consuming power from coal and all those polluting sources, or they are generating power, they should be penalized. That's what the government came up. And they said, okay, now we are creating a marketplace. We'll issue certain certificates to incentivize. And since you guys can't completely shift into renewables, so to meet your requirement, you can buy these certificates. That's it. Simple. So trading platform, they can just trade on it. So today, if let's say I'm based out of in Odisha and I can't put up a wind plant there and I have an obligation. So for me, it's simple to, instead of putting so much capex, I can just go and buy those certificates. So that's what is being traded among countries, among entities on global platforms. So if you see even Tesla, a good portion of their revenue comes from carbon credits. So every car they sell, it's written in the fine lines that, okay, the carbon credits will be in Tesla's name.
But मतलब काफी deep है, like it's not like कि ऊपर से दिखता है black and white. It's not that, like it's a very deep space in the way it's happening. And do you feel कि EV will be the new IT? Because I think I read this report from IVEF Economic Times में कहीं था कि in 7 years from now, EV is going to employ like 10 million people. And about 50 million people would be in EV allied jobs. So 10 million are direct recruits.
Right.
So do you feel this is going to be the reality? And say, how do you skill people? How do you get them into the workforce?
You're absolutely right. I won't use the analogy of IT, but it's going to create a completely new landscape here. When we say this, no sector could create so much micro entrepreneurs what EV is going to do.
And why do you say so?
Look at the delivery guys, look at the last mile mobility guys, the e-rickshaws of the world, the Zomato delivery guys, the Amazon delivery guys. They are micro entrepreneurs. They have left the jobs of this manufacturing and labor work and they have purchased their vehicle and today they are living a good life. So that's the major impact.
Do you think that these scalable models हैं? For example, with Zepto, with Swiggy, अभी हमने recently इतना देखा कि drivers मतलब वो जो ₹10 और जो उनको
in Blinkit what you saw that.
Exactly. So do you think कि मतलब these are like scalable models for them? या फिर यहाँ से अभी market और emerge होगी, कुछ और नई opportunities निकल के आएंगी, business models थोड़े से और innovate होंगे?
See what happens for any company to these drivers, they're the lifeline for this whole ecosystem. If you see the e-commerce, quick commerce. And they're the one who are compromised. It's easy to compromise on them. And that's where Chargeup steps in. We are standing with them. We are making, what we measure very clearly is my driver's earning increasing month on month? Or is his savings increasing month on month with Chargeup? That's a core metric we measure. So now with this Blinkit, Zomato, what happened recently? That's going to happen on and off. And it's happening globally. We have seen with Amazon's also. But they can't sustain without them. So it's a sustainable model and definitely that's going to grow multifold. If you see, at least in Delhi NCR also, if you see like a lot of people, immigrants coming at the age profile from 18 to 30, they come for them. It's very easy. Just they get a two-wheeler and they have a job in hand. So that's something it will create a lot of micro entrepreneurs.
And I think the way like entire system is evolving, business models are innovating. For example, the way you mentioned your technology-oriented platform. The technology is also supporting like the safety and other aspects as well.
Absolutely. And see, what you said in the starting, the trust. The first 2 years, Chargeup just focused on building the right safety parameters, building the trust among the users Today they always say Chargeup hai to safe hai. That's the hashtag what's used on drivers. These drivers, when we started working with them, and that's what triggered our behavior actually. When we saw that, okay, an average driver earning 22K per month, ab wo mahine ka 45,000 he's earning. That's substantial for him.
42,000 a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now imagine a guy who used to work 30 days for this 22K. Now he says, I'll work 25 days. I'll work 6 days a week. So and when you're actually empowering them, that through our platform today, anyone can adopt an EV is the most convenient one. It's like buying a mobile phone. Can you imagine today people buying Apple 1.5 lakh phone such an ease, even with a lower salary? So that's what Chargeup is doing for these drivers. They pay 7,000, they get a two-wheeler with them, and then they are free. Energy is like pay-per-use for them.
And probably that's why your retention rates are higher. Like, how do you have any stats on your retention rates? Like, how much people retain with you? Or
it's below 0.5% our attrition on the driver. So, and what we've seen, these are majorly people who are probably shifting to other cities, other people, but it's below 0.5%.
Would you say that's a good number?
Yeah, it's absolutely a good number. At least in a market where we are having, they have so many options now, at least. And they're having this percentage is good because, we coined this term called, like, we today hear D2C. So we have meant D2E, driver to experience,
Yeah.
And those things we are very finicky about it, that these are like non-negotiables for us. The driver must get these things, no detouring, no waiting time, 100% uptime. So these things they have never thought of. So we made them aware that, okay, these can be available for you, and this increases your revenue over time. So for us, more than that climate tech, it starts from the driver.
I think that's it's important because like you have led to mass adoption of a very new service, and that service is adopted maybe because the service had the pull in itself. Like you didn't have to like push it like really hard.
Absolutely. And Shweta, I always say the most interesting part about this business, this market, demand is not a problem.
Supply.
What we have to solve is operational efficiencies, finance, supply chain, these things. So very few business gives you that type of opportunity.
Where do you imagine Chargeup to be? Like, what do you think? What's the vision for Chargeup?
So I will say, in next 3 years, almost every parcel of food delivered at your place will be powered by Chargeup.
Wow, I am waiting for that. I always feel happy like when I see a Zypp, my entire family goes like, "Arey Zypp Electric Akash wali ye hai."
Absolutely.
I think with Chargeup also, I am waiting for that to happen.
Absolutely. I think Akash at Zypp has done a wonderful job.
Yes.
And today, even when we see EVs in my society, it's not that only powered by Chargeup. When we see EVs, it brings a smile on our face. Oh, good. It's noise. There's no noise around it. There's noise around EVs, but there's no noise from EVs.
Yes. I think because it is giving like a boost to the entire ecosystem, and the demand is like so big right now. Like sab milke bhi solve karenge, to bhi demand will be there.
Absolutely. This is what I say. There's no competition.
There is not competition.
All should actually unite together to make this a much better ecosystem.
Because ultimately, जब ecosystem develop करेगा, तभी like पूरा
exactly
overall
increase the size of the industry. Now, why do you have to fight for those small pieces out here?
And how do you say incorporate newer technologies? For example, जब हम battery swapping की बात करते हैं, charging stations की बात करते हैं, like आजकल जैसे fast charging and all of that. So talk to me about the technology. Like what technology are you using, and how do you say like are you getting it abroad or are you manufacturing it in India? So what does that look like?
So technology has two different dimensions. One is we are talking about the engineering side, the product tech, and then there is the IT tech. See, product tech hasn't evolved yet much. We started when 4 years back. We have been very conscious on the battery technology, the SOPs, the best operating practices, what we follow. But what I felt later, it's the tech which is going to make the major difference. You can't control the supply side of the technology and all those things. It's the tech. So today, with the layers we have built around the whole ecosystem of EV, it's safe, it's seamless for the driver. So these every batteries in vehicles have a telematics device, an IoT device, which helps us. Initially, it was all about tracking, but today it gives so much data that we know the behavior of the battery, behavior of the vehicle, we know the behavior of the driver, all three components, and we can predict now. okay, in next 6 days, this battery may have a problem. Let's solve it now. In next 10 days, this vehicle may create a problem for the driver. Let's solve it now. So, it's like they should not see a downtime.
I actually interviewed Karan. I don't know if you know about him, from EV2 Ventures.
Okay, yeah.
So
Karan,
I asked him this question, that how are, say, EV startup players going to stay relevant,
Right.
particularly when there are bigger companies and everyone coming into the space. And he mentioned something very similar what you're talking about, ki it is through these data sets, through the IPs that these people are creating.
Absolutely.
Because, it's all about data. And how do you say write those algorithms about using that data points?
See, I'll tell you the difference. And this is a very good question what you've put up here. Going beyond as a platform, who are the top 5 companies in electric two-wheelers today in India? Ola? Do they had the experience of manufacturing? No. Okinawa? No. Ather? No. Interesting how EVs is, as you have removed the engine out of it, now there's a lot of room to play around on the technology part. So there are 2 main components of this, the battery and the IT tech. So these companies are able to innovate faster, take that call and their go-to market is much faster than a traditional company.
Why is that so, that from a traditional company? Because traditional companies के पास तो यार बहुत पैसा है, उनके R&D में भी they have huge R&D setups. So why is that so?
See, I believe there is a certain decorum, there are certain systems and processes which has been running since ages in these companies. For them, there's a certain process of decision making, certain process of testing the market, testing the product goes. For a startup, what differentiates them is fail fast, keep improving, go faster. So that's the interesting part. And
when you as you're talking about this thing now, so I have always heard that EV space बहुत ही capital intensive है, asset heavy space है. So when you initially started, what was your investment cycle like? What was your funding cycle like? And did the investors initially trust the idea? Because I might be wrong here, but not many investors really do have investor thesis when we are talking about these spaces. Because हमारी तरह उनके लिए भी सब कुछ नया है, उन्होंने भी हमसे पहले नहीं करा है. So एक risk taking appetite, I think investor के part पे भी we have. Absolutely.
We were part of all the thesis building. Since we were the early movers in the space. But you're right. Traditionally, any company who comes into a play of infra initially, because we started as a network. So we were part of this thesis building for the investors initially. And you're right. Since we also started traditionally as a network building company, any infra company it's a capital intensive and it takes time to make sense. But we figured out that very soon and we actually switched to a very asset light model. So we don't open our own stations. We have partners, dealers.
Franchisee
model. And these are all people who have some ancillary business. So, we went into a revenue sharing model with them. So no rentals. And that's what helped us during COVID very well. Secondly, we don't buy these assets. We lease them, get them on lease. So we are asset light. So for us, that was not a challenge.
So, and when we talk about this, I know that Capital A is one of your investors.
Right.
So how has Capital A sort of helped you grow to where you are today? And do you have any personal stories about Ankit? Ankit is not here, so I think you can say anything about him.
So Ankit, okay.
बहुत ही खड़ूस investor है Ankit.
I wish, but not really. So I know Ankit prior to this investment. And interestingly, we had that time just started our fundraise journey and we had some term sheets. And I was very clear because I don't need sharks. I need people who come, who believe in the vision and who help us grow.
Dolphins.
Precisely. So, and that time Ankit has also started his fund and we connected on, he was discussing about some other company, EV company. Mm-hmm. And that's where discussion started. So primarily I said, Ankit, I think since we know each other, I don't think it's a good idea. Let the team decide, the analyst and all. And then it happened. And I think that's the best thing happened for Chargeup. Capital A doesn't come with only money. They come with actually a lot of resources and they're smart capital. I always say it's a smart capital. They bring with a lot of good people on the board, advisors. And Ankit also has seen a journey in his parent company. Yes. Someone who actually understands real business. And he's not running around those other metrics as a startup, what people think.
He's very strong.
Absolutely. So those things really helped us.
Great, yeah. I think Ankit also mentioned something similar that, because he understands operations of the
Yeah.
way he's able to help, his founders, his companies, and
Yeah.
he's like very proud of all his companies. Like I felt that when I had a conversation with him.
Okay.
So that's good. So yeah, I think we're approaching towards the end of the podcast. So Varun, tell me this thing now, that where do you want to see Chargeup to be in the coming few years? Is being a unicorn on your charts?
So we have this mission million on our, in our office, this target everyone knows. 2027, we look at 1 million users, drivers on our platform. See, I think that the unicorn state is something doesn't excite me, but the what they talk about a unicorn valuation, that number as a revenue definitely excites me.
I think that's really important,
Yeah.
like to me, honestly, I've always felt ki profitability, cash flow,
Yep.
like these are like really important aspects for any business.
100%.
And currently, I think Sara dialogue is changing towards profitability, towards recurring cash
And
flows.
Shweta, हम तो ऐसे भी we are like Marwadi baniya, so हम तो we don't understand that part of the story. We are always more excited about building a strong,
Right.
profitable business, customer-centric business, and we are looking to build something in the long term, not something ki you just go on that number crunching, build a valuation, you sell it. No, that's not what we are here for.
Something that outlasts us.
Absolutely, 100%. That's the right thing, what you said. And we really admire companies like Zerodha today.
Oh my God, I love the founders. Great
Absolutely.
respect for them.
Absolutely. It really, it's the hardest thing to do.
So great, yeah. I think Marwadi Banyas are really good business people. I think I had someone on the podcast and he came and he was like, pura banya ka dimag laga rakha. And I feel that's a very strong and very good, thing to have.
Yeah.
So hence proven, banyas are the best when you're talking in the space of climate tech, because
हमारे
we
तो
build profitable businesses.
100%. And if you see, हमारे तो investors भी वही है. Ankit is a Marwadi. Yeah, so
Great, then we have like an entire, group of Marwadi Banyas leading climate revolution. But on a serious note, I think what you've done is really amazing, because for me, what matters the most is that how are we bringing people into the solutions we are building? क्योंकि अगर आपके solution का खुद का ही pull है,
right.
It's impacting people. लोग खुद
Yeah.
आपके पास आ रहे हैं. So that is what climate really needs. Solve for them, help them prosper in their lives,
Yeah.
give them better living conditions, better environmental conditions. And I feel that's where the story is. So you're charging them, like you're really charging their lives up, I would say.
Yeah, so we always, that's our, I always mantra. We always, if someone asks us, how are you? We say we are charged up. We are charging up people's life. And these small stories about our drivers. And when I say micro entrepreneurs, even all these are dealers, There's a small kirana store. He started with us and today he's earning 50,000 per month.
So like the kirana store like has your station installed.
Absolutely.
This was the idea I actually gave like to an automobile company. So they were like that the charging takes really long.
Yep.
And मतलब लोग वहाँ बोर हो जाते हैं. They're like हम करेंगे क्या?
Right.
So probably having these small charging stations at say a nukkad wala or maybe at a dhaba or something, so
Right.
that it also gives the person the revenue stream. Plus, it also makes comfortable
that's
for the
always
user.
how it started also in US. If you see, these are always on these subways and outside Starbucks and all, so that people can spend time and that charging can happen there.
So, मतलब मुझे एक चीज बताओ Varun, कि for example, if I am as a person, I want to say earn some extra revenue.
Right.
So how do I put up like a charging station from Chargeup at my place? Like what would be the process for me if I want to have like a Chargeup station?
Okay.
And what do I need? मतलब ये लगाने के
See,
लिए.
nothing. You just need a space.
And that space, like how big that space has to be.
It can be a 300, 500 square feet space also. That's enough. It can go bigger, but yeah, that's from where you start. And we, how our dealers today look at it. They say, you first gave us an Indian Oil petrol pump. Now you gave us a Maruti showroom, and now there's a service center. So it's like my future generations who were reluctant to sit in the shop for these business, now they are more happy to join this business. Through this, then they start getting, when we make them conscious on that, because of you, this much kilometers have been done and this much trees have been planted, this much environment. So they become more conscious because frankly, at the end of the tunnel, those people are not much interested in the climate part. But through this financial engineering, earning and making them conscious, slowly they're also becoming conscious.
Become invested into it. So do you also like skill these people? For example, say like maybe not me, but say if my father has to say put up like a charging station from
Right.
Chargeup.
Yep.
So उनको तो कुछ नहीं पता कि what is
Oh,
that. So do
absolutely.
you skill these people कि देखो ये ऐसे काम करता है, safety procedures ये हैं.
It's so seamless the way we do it. Within 2 days, the station is up and running. You just need to understand the app. That's it.
And how much money say do I need to have this station?
Oh, the least it starts with an investment of 1 lakh rupees.
1 lakh, like really 1 lakh rupees,
Yeah.
and that's the मतलब is it something कि monthly कुछ recurring pay करना है?
Nothing. आपने 1 lakh से start किया. It's a negative working capital business. आपको monthly कुछ invest नहीं करना है. Within 6 to 7 months, you'll recover your money, and you can start. As you start making money, you can start expanding.
Yeah, you give me 10 to 20 charging stations.
I'm happy. The show makes more sense to me now.
You know, I remember like when we were actually like in the starting and stuff. So like one of my team members was like, "यार श्वेता यार कुछ देखना यार कहीं से अगर हम charging stations हो we can buy them." But like so that would make like business sense for us. But what you're talking to me makes so much sense. यार सबके पास space and they could actually take these stations.
Right.
So I hope जो लोग हमें सुन रहे हैं and if they have some space, they can actually contact you and they can also be a part of this journey because profitability भी है उनके लिए इस चीज
absolutely.
में.
आप सोचिए हम जब मथुरा गए, it took us hardly 45 days to set up 35 dealers, and we have covered Mathura completely, the entire district, Mathura,
Wow.
Vrindavan, the entire district. A lot of time before, people used to ask us charging or swapping. That was a very common question. And we say both are going to exist, and we do both. There's a swapping customer who needs swapping, who do more kilometers, and the customer who need less kilometers, they do charging. We provide solution. We provide the entire energy solution to them.
That's really interesting, and also feel that in this space, I think the way you analyze कि station कहाँ हो सकता है. For example, I remember like I know in my area there's a specific portion just and that's the place जहाँ पर e-rickshaws खड़ी रहती हैं लाइन से. So I'm just wondering कि अगर वहाँ पर कोई एक station लगा लेगा,
right,
that person would be extremely profitable, and the amount of money you're telling me 1 lakh, like it's really comparatively it's very less, something that could be really managed on.
Absolutely.
Great, yeah. Like I think it's a lovely business model, and what I feel is that it's just not you who is growing; you're making opportunities for people all around you.
Chargeup is all about growth. If my drivers are growing, my dealers, partners are growing, we all are growing.
Wow. And one last question like I have for you is I just want to understand this space. जब हम e-rickshaws की बात करते हैं तो मतलब जितनी मेरा knowledge है, there are a group of मतलब ऐसे प्लेयर्स होते हैं जो 15, 20, 25 रिक्शास खरीद लेते हैं.
Right.
एंड जो ड्राइवर है वो उनसे रिक्शा
रेंट
पे या लीज पे लेके चलाता है. तो आर यू ऑल्सो कोलैबोरेटिंग विद दीज प्लेयर्स? बिकॉज मतलब मुझे किसी एक की रिक्शा ड्राइवर ने ही ये चीज बोली थी कि अगर हमें खुद की रिक्शा खरीदनी है तो हमारे पास कोलैटरल नहीं है रखने के लिए. एंड दिस वाज समथिंग दैट वाज आल्सो मेंशन्ड इन जो नीति आयोग की रिपोर्ट आई थी कि हमें ईवी को आरबीआई के प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग में डालना है.
आई हैव बीन, ट्रस्ट मी श्वेता, when they talk subsidy, I said remove subsidies. आप EV को priority sector lending में डाल दीजिए and subsidize the financing, and you'll see the industry will grow on its own completely.
जब आपने कहा कि सब्सिडी हटा दो और उसमें डाल दो, मतलब थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करो कि कहाँ से सब्सिडी हटा के कहाँ डाल सकते हैं.
Currently your government is subsidizing the vehicle.
मतलब उसका ऑन रोड
भाई आज so let's say a two-wheeler, electric two-wheeler, आप किसी भी कंपनी का लेते हो, it cost you 1.3 lakh rupees. सब्सिडी के बाद it cost you 90,000 rupees.
Correct.
Right? So government is subsidizing this. So we are saying आप सब्सिडी चाहे हटा दो, but आप उसको प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग में लाओ so that the banks start giving financing to these drivers at a competitive interest. Today, average I think EV is being financed at 18 to 20% interest rate. 18 to 20% interest rate. Even the down payments are very high, and that's why Chargeup stepped in. When I say fintech. So today, an average e-rickshaw driver who used to pay 50,000 to buy down payment, with Chargeup, he's paying 22,000 down payment, almost more than half. If you see a two-wheeler Zomato driver, today Zomato collaborated with us, Hero Electric collaborated with us. So we focus more on the ownership model, how to make it, because in India today, we still take that pride of owning the vehicle.
Correct.
Right? And we believe ownership model is there for a long-term play. So that's what we made it simple. Just pay 7,000 at Chargeup and take the two-wheeler home, and for energy pay per month. So it's like even cheaper than leasing a vehicle for them.
That's interesting. And also, like, I really love the way you said ki ownership, because India may, like, we still have the ownership culture. We really want to own something. So, which brings me to my next point, Varun, ki I actually had a discussion with someone. That person said ki battery swapping का कोई future नहीं है.
Okay.
ठीक है. So, and his point really was that ki because other like ownership ka hi, hai, because everyone wants to own what they have.
Right.
So maybe people would want to own battery. So is it that ki maybe battery swapping might not be a good option, say for people like who just have like a vehicle जो मतलब अपने लिए personal use के लिए चला
Personal
रहे हैं.
mobility, right.
But for say the sector that you are targeting, it will always stay relevant.
Okay. Firstly, I said it's relevant for commercial vehicles who
Right.
want to do 100 kilometers for them per day. It makes sense. But let's say you buy a two-wheeler for your personal use. The two-wheeler which was costing you 90,000, today it costs you 40,000.
Upfront cost कम हो गई क्योंकि swap कर रहा है.
Absolutely. Won't that make sense for you? Number one.
बट ऐसा तो हो सकता है ना कि शायद कि अरे यार मैंने बैटरी एक्सचेंज करी किसी और की बैटरी ले, क्या पता खराब हो, क्या पता.
I'm coming. So first, you get a vehicle from a hero showroom saying that, okay, this is the vehicle without battery, you get 40,000.
ठीक है.
You'll prefer to take that because
हाँ
90,000 में आपका डाउन पेमेंट भी 12,000 होगा, यहाँ पे आपको 4,000 पे करके मिलेगा.
हाँ agreed.
Now comes the planning part. You're charging, you have to plan. कि you have to go somewhere, अच्छा, I have to charge it today whole night and then I have to plan it. In swapping, you don't have to. You take out the battery and you put it in your society in the swapping station, gone. आप जब भी जा रहे हो ऑफिस के वहाँ पे swapping station है, you find it everywhere. So now for you, Shweta, as an economy, we have shifted from 1 day delivery to 10-minute delivery. That's the behavior change. So do you want to plan so much? No. These are two major points. And practical one major point on charging, I always say, especially people living in societies. Does the society has that much capacity in the substations for this much load of power to charge all the vehicles? Today they have 4 vehicles, 5 vehicles, but when they have 100 vehicles, can they charge it? They need so much power. So the infrastructure is a huge challenge.
I agree. And I think it's like what you earlier mentioned, the system is evolving, infrastructure is evolving. And that's a great perspective. Thanks, Varun. Thanks for being on the show. And I like really loved interacting with you. Loved
Same here.
hearing about, Chargeup and the way you're building the entire ecosystem. I have got huge respect for you because you're not just growing yourself alone. You're making people grow with you. And I think that's an amazing thing when you're doing it with your startup. And I really wish that you grow to heights. And I don't know if you want to be a unicorn. I want to see you become a profitable unicorn and show the world what does a Marwadi Banya can do when it comes to building a profitable unicorn.
Superb. Absolutely. That's what we will do for sure.
Thank you so much.